What's up everybody? Welcome back to episode 4, Building an App with ChatGPT and Flutter. To be perfectly honest, I was pretty rushed when I was making the last episode, and it came out a little shorter than I had intended. So in this episode, we're going to take a deeper dive into some of the code. We're going to look more closely at the dynamic string technique that we used, and then we'll walk through the prompt that we used to get ChatGPT to give us the code that we needed to give us the ability to edit the player names in real time and save that information into our app. So let's get started with what I'm calling dynamic strings. In episode 3, we added text headers to our game setup menu to lend context to the fields for our users. But using just the word dice for our dice element does not really make it clear to the user what that field is for. So I thought it would be better if we could incorporate the number of sides on the dice directly into the header to make it clearer to the user what they were selecting. In this case, the number of sides on our dice are represented by the integer in our code named dice type. So we needed to find a way to incorporate the integer dice type into the text being used as the header, which is a string. Fortunately, Flutter makes this easy for us using a built-in function called toString. Using the toString function, we can convert dice type from an integer into a string and add it into the header for our dice. Now when we change the number of sides selected for our dice, the header changes dynamically with it. Next up, we want to add in the functionality to be able to click on a player's name in the game setup menu and edit that name. To do this, we're going to go back to ChatGPT and ask it for some more code. Once ChatGPT produced the code that we wanted, we gave it one more prompt to ask it to produce a code segment that could be copied from the chat. That just makes it easier for us to copy the code out of chat and then drop it into our project. So we copy that code and drop it back into our project and test it out. And now we can easily edit any of the player names in our player list. Now that we have all of the functionality built out for our game setup menu, we can work on what happens when we actually try to start our game. We're going to start by locating the code for our Start Game button in our game setup menu and asking ChatGPT to explain exactly what this code is doing. ChatGPT's explanation helps us understand that our current code just loads a blank screen when we tap our Start Game button. So now we'll just ask ChatGPT to update the code for our Start Game button so that it loads our game screen instead. And instead of inserting the new code into the existing Start Game button, I'm going to make a second Start Game button for testing the new code. Okay, so the new Start Game button works. Now it's time to get to work on the actual game screen. So if you've watched episode 1, you might remember that we want our game screen to look something like this. So in order to figure out what code we need to make that work, we'll start a separate test project so that we don't mess up all of the good code that we already have here. And now it's back to ChatGPT to see if we can figure out how to make our player cell. So once we have generated our hexagon using ChatGPT in our test project, we can take that code and plug it into the code for our player cell in our main app. Unfortunately, as you can see, this hasn't quite worked. The reason for this is that we're generating multiple player cells on our game screen, but they're not scaling so that they'll fit. This results in the black and yellow bar at the bottom, showing that what we're trying to display on the screen overruns the edges of our actual screen. So the next episode will be dedicated to generating player cells that will scale to fit onto the screen. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed the series so far. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you want to be notified for the next episode, please consider subscribing. And if you have something that you want to see me cover more in depth, please go ahead and leave a comment below and let me know. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.